Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Grey's Anatomy, Season 4, Episode 4, The Heart of the Matter. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So as always, we start with the patients. First patient is a boy who comes in after football, where he was held down and then tackled, which caused his spine to dislocate, which left him completely paralyzed from the neck down. And the way that they corrected this was by essentially screwing bolts into his head and then adding weights that basically forced the spine to stretch and snap back into place in order to hopefully leave him not completely paralyzed going forward. And the father, who is a coach type, tries to encourage him by, being the tough love type. However, that's not what the boy needs in this particular scenario, to the point where the boy actually has a panic attack kicking his dad out, though we do see at the end of the episode the dad was allowed back in and is a lot gentler this time. Then we have a woman who comes in. She fell off of a treadmill and thought she just sprained her ankle, but had actually completely crushed her foot because she had osteoporosis, because she was starving herself. And before they're willing to operate, they basically have to have her commit to eating properly, because otherwise the bones aren't going to heal properly, so there'd be no point. But she's reluctant to be in a cast because she's in a toxic relationship where the man that she's with is basically telling her that she needs to stay skinny or he's not going to be attracted to her or want to be with her anymore. So that's what's led to her overworking out, stressing her body while not eating. Ultimately, she does start spitting up blood because she has an ulcer, which is also a consequence of that. However, due to the strain of her body and the fragile state she's in due to the starvation, her heart isn't able to take the strain of the surgery, which ultimately results in her dying. Then we have Richard's niece Camille that we had met in season 2 coming back into the hospital. Actress was recast, but she basically has a relapse of the cancer, a recurrence of the cancer, and this time she's decided she doesn't want to fight it. In fact, she let it get as bad as it was because she had hoped that it would kill her before she had to come back to the hospital. But Richard, of course, tries to talk her into fighting, to getting treatment, but she's already had cancer several times in her life and she's done fighting. So she just has to go home, and because she is 18, it is her decision to make. And Richard, as her doctor, does accept that, even at the cost of his fragilely repaired relationship with Adele. And then Norman and Meredith are doing rounds for Sloane when they give the wrong patient a death diagnosis, which ultimately ends with the patient upending their entire life, breaking up with their boyfriend, quitting their job, telling their boss how it is, booking a vacation that they don't plan to come back from, only to find out that they were given the wrong information, they're not dying. She threatens to sue the hospital, but instead the hospital settles with her, so she ends up being very happy with Meredith and Norman, though they both are getting written up for it. And then the rest of the episode was taken up with relationship dramas. So we have the drama between Callie and George. At the end of the last episode, George had told Callie about Izzy. So this episode, Callie tries to forgive him, but ultimately she just bottles everything up until she ends up exploding at the toxic boyfriend of the starvation patient, and she finally has to admit that she doesn't forgive him and they're not okay. And she's even more upset with Izzy because Izzy's a woman, and how could you do that to another woman? It's expected of men, but you're, you may tell from my tone, I disagree with that 100,000%. I don't think it's any worse, whether it's the woman or the man. If somebody's cheating and they know they're cheating, they're all equally terrible, equally responsible. I have zero tolerance for it, as you may know. Anyways, then there's Derek and Meredith. Derek invites Meredith to a weekend getaway, even though they're not technically dating. And by the end of the episode, after talking to Lexi throughout the day, he realizes how closed off Meredith really is. And he basically tells her everything he wants from her, marriage, children, build a house, grow old together, basically live their lives together, but that he knows she's not ready for that and that she has to fight the impulse to run away. And he says that he'll wait, but if while he's waiting he happens to meet someone that's already ready for all of that, that he may see other people, essentially, is what he gets down to. Um, Due to Derek's interest in Lexi through Meredith, because she's Meredith's sister, Derek does also end up mistreating Christina throughout the episode, which is not great. Alex and Izzy get into a fight because Alex is kind of insulted that Izzy went from him to then Denny, to then never getting over Denny, to suddenly George of all people. And I agree with him, George of all people. I don't even know why Callie likes George. I don't like George. So there was that as well. And it seems like George and Izzy are not continuing after he's told Callie. So everything's kind of in the air for them. I mean, like, Izzy was bawling her eyes out, so it doesn't seem like she's happy with George now that he's told Callie or anything like that. Obviously, Adele and Richard. When Richard respects Camille's wishes, Adele does not like that because she doesn't want to lose her niece. And so, even though they were starting to work on their relationship more, Adele once again is leaving Richard, or at least that's what's implied in the conversation, because he won't go against the wishes of his patient, which I think as a doctor he can't anyways. But that's basically what happened in this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, it's time to rank the episode, first on the mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So we have our single episode supporting character introductions. We have Arlene Travis, who is Camille's mom, Gretchen Bitzer, who is the patient that was told she was dying when she wasn't, Ruthie Sales, who is the one who dies due to starvation, and then Adam Singer, who is the football player who needed his spine relocated. Multi-episode supporting character development. Camille has a cancer relapse and comes back into the hospital, but chooses ultimately to reject any treatment and is sent back home by her own choice. And honestly, her mother seems more accepting of it than her aunt Adele, so that's a point in Arlene's favor, in my opinion. Then we have the main relationship development of Derek planning a weekend with Meredith, confessing what the future he envisions with Meredith is, but also admitting that Meredith isn't ready for that, but stating that he'll wait. This is countered by the main relationship regression or breakup, in which Derek basically changes his mind about going out on a weekend because he wants more than that, and then suggests that he could find someone ready while he's waiting, and is basically open to the idea of sleeping or seeing other people since they aren't technically together anymore. Then we have the negative messaging or behavior. Negative messaging or behaviors. Obviously, Derek lets his personal feelings interfere with his professionalism as it pertains to Christina and Lexi. Christina is teaching, but in her own way. And Lexi does make a genuine mistake that could have cost the patient his ability to ever be not paralyzed. And Christina rightfully scolds her for this, and Derek, because he's so interested in getting close to Lexi, who's Meredith's sister, decides to keep sidelining Christina, to keep pushing Christina out, even going so far as banning Christina from the surgery and letting Lexi in. Lexi, who during the surgery almost makes like an actual mistake that could have again cost the patient. So more than once she made mistakes. Christina stepped in. Derek, because he's trying to win brownie points, I don't know, Meredith's not overly fond of Lexi, so I don't know why he thinks being nice to her is going to get him brownie points. But either way, he's trying to score brownie points. So he's basically, you know, negatively impacting Christina's authority, Christina's ability to do her job, Christina's ability to teach in her way in order to score brownie points with Lexi, the intern, who makes multiple mistakes throughout the episode, but doesn't get scolded or corrected on it because when Christina tries, Derek just basically shoos her away. It was very unprofessional, very dislikable behavior. Then there's a lack of due diligence in that they told a patient, Norman and Meredith, that she was dying when she actually wasn't, which caused her to completely upend her life, but worked out for her because she got a settlement through threatening to sue, rightfully so. But like, even as Meredith says, like all she had to do was double check the chart and make sure like that they got the right room number, and she didn't. So that I thought was a negative. There was, of course, the supporting relationship regression or breakup. After trying to forgive George, Callie then realizes she can't forgive him, and that's where we ended on the episode. And then we also have another main relationship regression or breakup, which is Adele leaving Richard again over Camille. We're in the negatives of points at this point, so it is a 1 out of 10 episode, which is the lowest score possible. And that brings the mostly objective ranking list to in first, A Change is Gonna Come, Love/Addiction, Let the Truth Sting, and then this episode comes in fourth, The Heart of the Matter. Now my personal ranking. I do agree with this episode being lower scored. Everything I said in the objective ranking list still applies. Even what I said in the summary still applies. I also don't really like the way they treat Norman just because he's older. Like I feel a great amount of like pity for this character because he takes it with like a good attitude, but that just shows what a good person he is. And then, everybody's being a little bit rude. Um, everybody's trying to pawn him off. It's just, they're not really as diligent with him because they assume because he's older, he will have more knowledge than, a younger intern, even though he is also an intern and should have the same level of care and attention taken. Example from this very episode where he got the room number wrong, something any intern probably could do, but no one ever thought to double check on it because, well, why not? Because he's older, they assumed that he probably was right. And I think that was very negative, but I wish they were nicer to him because he seems like a really nice person and everybody seems annoyed and angry about the fact that he exists there. And it's like people change careers partway through their life. People go back to school. Like it's not something that's super strange. Now, have I mentioned in the past episodes where I think entering into a career at that age where you'll pretty much be retired before you even get out of training because the training takes like a decade? Yeah, I do think that's a bit weird. That wouldn't be my first choice, but everybody has the right to do what they want to do, and who knows, maybe they plan to work past retirement age, and so it's not a big deal for them. Either way, I do wish they treated him a little bit nicer. Um, the patients were mostly an afterthought except Camille. I do wish they hadn't recast her though, because it feels like it's a new character, not a character that's more identifiable. Because she is recurring from the end of season 2. She was in the last 2 episodes of that, but obviously they recast. So at first it's like, who is this person? And then we're like, oh yeah, now they've mentioned it, so they know who it is. I do think that Adele was a little bit bullheaded in this episode as well, like stubborn. Camille basically tells her, I have fought. Here are some consequences from the last time I went through chemo. This type of hell that I lived through. I'm tired. I want to just enjoy my life, enjoy it with you, with my friends, everybody else. I don't want any more treatment. I'm 18. I can make that choice. And Adele just will not hear it. She will not accept what her niece is telling her. She will not accept that Richard failed to change her mind Richard does not have control over Camille. He even offers her like an extensive plan with multiple doctors, multiple treatments, multiple different options on ways that she could potentially live, and she rejects them, and that's on her. So I do think Adele was a little bit too stubborn in this case, but also at the same time, it's family, there's high emotions, and people don't always think logically when emotion is involved. So as much as I pointed out, I don't necessarily think too negatively about it. And then, of course, there's all the relationship dramas, which are kind of the meat and potatoes of the episode, really. Um, I still gave it a lower score, though. I gave it a 3 out of 10, mostly because the main drama was Callie and George, and Callie's kind of denying the truth of how she feels until the end. But there was brilliant rain scene at the end, which I really liked. I gave it a 3. I gave it a 3. There were some redeeming qualities, but for the most part, I just didn't necessarily enjoy the episode, unfortunately. Anyways, that brings the personal ranking to A Change Is Gonna Come, Love/Addiction, Let the Truth Sting, and then this episode is in 4th, The Heart of the Matter. Honestly, so far, I'm finding season 4 a bit of a disappointment as compared to the other 3 seasons, but I kind of forget where this goes, so hopefully it gets better. Anyways, that brings us to our series ranking so far. On the mostly objective, we have season 1 in first, followed by season 2, then season 3, and season 4 is currently sitting at 21 out of a possible 150. Meanwhile, the personal ranking side has season 3 in first, followed by season 2, then season 1, and season 4 is currently sitting at 26 out of a possible 150. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 4, Episode 4, The Heart of the Matter. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.